She claims she speaks 12 languages? Ha 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 ha. The judge's laugh echoed through the courtroom, joined by smirks from the crowd. To them, she was nothing more than a maid in a uniform, an easy target, an easy conviction. But then her lips parted, and the room froze. One language, then another, then another. The laughter turned to silence, the silence to shock. Who was this woman they had mocked? And how had they underestimated her so badly? This is the story of the maid who silenced a courtroom with brilliance. Comment your city below if you're watching. She was known only as the Maid. A woman who crept through the hallways of the wealthy, polishing silver, scrubbing floors, and folding clothes that never belonged to her. To most, she was invisible. Another face in a uniform, another pair of hands doing the work no one else wanted to. But behind her steady eyes and calm silence lived a world no one cared to ask about. Her name was Amara. And though she lived in the shadows of others' wealth, her mind was anything but ordinary. Each morning, she rose before dawn, tying her apron with precision, walking to the mansion where she worked. She carried herself with grace, even when treated as if she were less than human. Some days she'd hear the whispered insults, the mocking tones, the dismissive laughter. Yet, she endured, because survival demanded it. She knew the weight of being black, poor, and overlooked in a society that measured worth by status. Amara never complained. Her strength was quiet, her resilience silent. Few knew that she spent her nights with books scattered across her small table, her lips forming words in languages that stretched far beyond the city walls. French, Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, the list went on. Language was her secret freedom, her escape, her rebellion against a world that thought she was nothing. But secrets never stay hidden forever. One evening, a false accusation would drag her into the cold walls of a courtroom, a charge she did not deserve, a spotlight she never sought. She stood there in her maid's uniform, eyes lowered, surrounded by whispers of guilt. And as the judge looked down at her, dismissing her with a smirk, no one yet knew that the woman they mocked was about to shatter every expectation. Her ordinary life was over. The world was about to see who she truly was. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale air, a place where whispers carried farther than truth. Amara stood at the center of it, her uniform freshly ironed, yet marking her as someone easily dismissed. To the wealthy family who accused her, she was nothing more than a servant who had stolen what wasn't hers. A necklace had gone missing and the finger pointed at her. No evidence, no witnesses, just the presumption that a maid must be guilty. The prosecutor painted her as cunning, a woman who smiled while secretly taking what she wanted. His words cut through the air, dripping with condescension. He spoke of her background, of her struggles, of how people like her often resorted to dishonesty. Each phrase was another dagger, not just at her character, but at the very identity she carried. The courtroom nodded along, as if the story sounded all too believable. Amara's lawyer, overworked and underpaid, struggled to keep up. He muttered objections, flipped through papers, but his voice carried little weight against the polished rhetoric of the prosecution. To the jury, Amara looked alone, one woman against an entire system designed to swallow her whole. She felt their eyes, heavy with judgment, each glance reducing her to a stereotype. The judge leaned back, arms crossed, lips curled in faint amusement. It was as though the outcome had already been decided, her fate sealed before she even opened her mouth. And when Amara tried to speak, her words stumbled, her voice breaking under the pressure. Laughter rippled softly through the room, the kind of laughter that told her she didn't belong here, that she was foolish to even try. But Amara's silence wasn't a weakness. It was a strategy. She remembered the long nights spent studying alone, whispering words from books written in tongues most people around her couldn't even name. She knew she had carried a gift hidden beneath her quiet exterior, one the world never cared to see. And now, as the walls closed in, that gift pressed at the edges of her silence, demanding to be unleashed. The tension rose when the prosecutor smirked and said she lacked the intelligence to outsmart anyone. She can barely manage her own duties, he sneered. How could she possibly defend herself against these charges? His words struck like a hammer, and even the judge chuckled, nodding as though it were fact. That moment cut deeper than any accusation. Intelligence, worth, humanity. All of it denied in one dismissive laugh. Amara straightened her posture. Her hands, once trembling, steadied on the wooden table before her. She could feel the fire building in her chest, the quiet strength she had carried all these years refusing to stay silent any longer. What happened next would not just defend her name. It would change how everyone in that room saw her, and as the air thickened with expectation, Amara took a slow breath, preparing to reveal the truth no one expected from a maid who was never supposed to be more than invisible. The moment of reckoning was coming, and no one, not the jury, not the judge, not the wealthy family watching smugly from the front row, was ready for what they were about to hear. The courtroom had grown still, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin. All eyes were fixed on Amara as she lifted her chin, her voice steady this time. "I speak 12 languages," she said. The words echoed, sharp and unexpected. For a moment, there was nothing but stunned disbelief. Then the room erupted in laughter. The judge chuckled openly, shaking his head. 12? He repeated, as though mocking a child's fantasy. The prosecutor smirked, ready to dismiss her claim as desperate theatrics. But Amara did not falter. She opened her mouth and shifted her tongue with flawless ease. French flowed like water, crisp and elegant. Gasps rippled through the benches. Before they could process, she switched again. Arabic rolled from her lips, prosperous and commanding. The laughter died. She moved on. Mandarin, German, Russian, Italian, each one perfect, each one undeniable. Whispers rose, spreading like wildfire. Jurors leaned forward, their skepticism crumbling. The prosecutor's papers slipped from his hand. Even the judge's smirk dissolved as his face hardened in shock. This was no maid fumbling for excuses. This was brilliance disguised in an apron, a woman whose mind carried worlds within it. And as Amara's voice shifted once more, the truth became unshakable. She was not only innocent, she was extraordinary. The courtroom, once filled with derision, now sat frozen, realizing they had tried to bury a diamond in the dirt. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments! The silence in the courtroom lingered long after Amara's final word. For the first time since the trial began, the weight of judgment shifted. Jurors who had once stared with suspicion now avoided her eyes, ashamed of their earlier assumptions. The prosecutor shuffled his notes, suddenly robbed of confidence. And the judge, who had laughed so freely moments before, now sat stiff and uneasy, his authority shaken by the brilliance he had tried to belittle. It wasn't just the languages. It was the undeniable truth that Amara had shattered every stereotype placed upon her. She had been accused not because of evidence, but because of prejudice. They hadn't seen her as a woman capable of intellect, discipline, or depth. To them, she was only the maid. And yet, in a single moment, she forced them to confront their own blindness. When the jury declared her innocent, Amara felt no triumph, only quiet vindication. She walked out of that courtroom the same woman she had always been, resilient, intelligent, and unshaken by the world's attempts to diminish her. But for those who watched, something had changed. They could no longer deny that worth and dignity were not bound by uniforms or social class. Amara's story was not just her own. It was the story of countless others misjudged, dismissed, and silenced. Her victory in that courtroom was a reminder of a larger fight, that racism doesn't always wear chains. Sometimes it hides in assumptions, smirks, and laughter. The question left hanging was simple yet haunting. How many more Amaras must stand accused before the world truly listens? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories, and share this one to keep the message alive.